We have come to Damascus, Syria, the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. Syria, a country in the middle of the Arab world, bordered by Turkey, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel, and the Mediterranean Sea. We have come for a conversation with the president of Syria, Bashar Al Assad. He became president in the year 2000, succeeding his father Hafez Al Assad. We want to talk about Syria, its future, how he sees the region, how he sees the relationship with the United States, and broad issues like war and terrorism. I am pleased to have Bashar Al Assad on this program for the first time.
You're most welcome in Syria.
It is, in the 5 years you have been president, a remarkable time in the Middle East. There has been change in Lebanon, change in Iran, change in Israel. There has been change in Iraq in a significant way. Tell me how you see all of this change and the role that you would like to see Syria play.
First of all, I couldn't see Syria apart from our neighboring countries and apart from the region in general. We cannot see the region separately from the rest of the world. Second, I would separate between what we hope to see in the future of our country and our region and what's going on. I think what we'd like to see is like any other country, peace, peaceful life, prosperity, better living, better standard of living, reform that we've been talking about for years in our country. But this is our hope. Actually, if I talk now about the reality, it's going in the opposite way. More extremism, more terrorism, less chances for jobs for the common people. That means worse off economy now and in the future. So, but that doesn't mean to lay all the problems on the others. Like if we talk about the war on Iraq, if we talk about the West in general, we have a role to play, and we're going to play our role. But there's difference between when you lead, let's say, the ship, or when you drive the car, and
yes,
when somebody else sharing with
yes,
you this car. So we have a lot of obstacles, some of them related to us, if not related to anybody else, some related to the international situation. So we're talking mostly about reform, political, economic, and cultural, which is very important as a basis for any reform.
At a time of change,
Yeah.
every leader wants to be understood. Tell me how you want to be understood by the American leadership and the American people.
Yeah. They have to understand me by understanding my culture as a person. If they want to understand me as president, they have to understand who I represent, which is related to the culture of my people. So the problem with the West, if I may make analogy to two computers with different systems. If you talk about Windows and Apple.
Yes, right.
So
Windows and Apple, yes.
Yeah,
they said to me you were of the internet age.
Yeah, that's true. They do the same job, but they have different systems. So you have sometimes some software to make the translation between the two
Yes.
systems. So we don't have to talk only about the events. We have to explain and analyze these events from our culture to another culture. That's what we want from the media in your country and from the politicians. That's how they can understand me, and they will understand that time that we need peace, we need prosperity, and we need the reform.
You have the same interest for stability in Iraq as do the Iraqi citizen, as do the United States.
Exactly. If we put aside the interest of the United States in Iraq, we have interest in having stability, because any effect in our region, it will be like a domino effect, especially if you have chaos. So what's going on in Iraq, if it's bad, it's going to have bad effects, bad side effects on Syria.
May I just take a moment to talk about your personal journey?
Yeah.
You were in England,
Yeah.
studying ophthalmology.
Yeah.
Your father, your brother, who was on a track to be
Yeah.
a leader in Syria, was killed in a tragic automobile accident in 1994.
Yeah.
You get the call from your father
Yeah.
to come back.
Yes.
What did he say?
Actually, I called him I called him because I knew before him.
Of the death of your brother?
Yes, somebody from our relative from our family called me, and I called my father from London to tell him that they told me such bad news.
Did you have to tell him about your brother's death?
I hadn't known that there was death or what. I just knew
a
that
bad
there was accident, so I didn't have any information. It was just right after the accident. Then I came back the same day to Damascus.
Knowing that your world had changed?
Not exactly, but the same day, yes. At the end of the day, when I came back to Damascus, I took the decision to come back.
You then had a 6-year period of involvement in this various aspects of government, military.
Yeah.
Your father could teach a master class in politics of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Tell me what you learned from him.
You'll be surprised if I tell you we've never talked about politics. We lived as any ordinary family. And since we were young, he was very keen to keep us away from any public life inside our house. But actually, in our region, when you're son of president, you're a public figure, whether you want or not. So you'll be in touch with the people, with the public problems. You will learn from the people. And you'll have the chance to analyze your father as president from his positions, from political positions and decisions, and from his personality as person in his house. So that's why you should compare.
So I changed the question. From watching him, what did you learn? This man who dominated Syrian life.
Normally, like any son, you learn the principles. This is first. Second, you learn the way he deal with the crisis, because we've been in crisis for decades. So you learn how to deal with the crisis, how to be patient with this crisis. This is the most important things you learn.
Now that you've been president for 5 years, he died 2000.
Yeah.
More than 5 years. What's been the most surprising thing for you in exercising power in Syria with all of this change around you?
The most surprising thing was how the developing country, and in particular the United States, have this high technology to import the information, but they use it to export. This is from one side. From the other side, how much information they have, but how much knowledge they need, which is how to analyze the information. I think these are developing countries. They have all the means to know more about at least our region. I'm not talking about the rest of the world.
Sure.
But it's surprising how they analyze it in the wrong way. This is very surprising.
You think the United States, for example, with all of its technology, doesn't understand what about you, Syria, the region?
As I said earlier, when you don't understand the culture, you don't understand the politics, especially in our region. If you don't understand the culture and the politics, you don't understand what decision we take as a leader and why, and what we say and why. That's why we always have this misunderstanding when we make dialogue with many delegations coming from countries in the West, but especially the United States. They ask us questions. It shows exactly how they misunderstand our vision and our beliefs and our goals.
And the fact that this is a very diverse society.
Exactly.
With representatives from a variety of different beliefs.
and sects and religious and all that sort.
If you sat down with George Bush, you would try to explain to him Syria.
Exactly. And the Middle East, because as part of the Middle East. And I would explain to any American, as we do, why they failed in Iraq, why the situation is getting worse.
Why is that? Why did, in your judgment, the United States fail? First, tell me why you didn't when they asked you to join with them in the coalition. You must have felt a lot of pressure.
Exactly. And
your father had supported the war in '91.
There's a big difference between the two wars. The first war was to liberate Kuwait, and we supported the liberation of Kuwait, and we were against the invasion of Kuwait by Saddam. But what the United States is doing now is what Saddam did to Kuwait. They invaded Iraq. This is first, as principle. We are against occupation as principle. Second, I think some in the United States, could be politicians, could be decisions makers, I think they based all the situation of invading Iraq on their ideology, on some notions that they would win the war if they win some battles. And I was very honest with them before the war. I received many delegations, some of them from the Congress, some of them from the administration. And I told them, you will win the war, no doubt about that. The first war, I mean the military part of it.
You will topple Saddam.
Exactly, there's no doubt about that. But after you occupy Iraq, you will have chaos, you will have resistance, you will have swamp. You're going to sink in the swamp. And what I said, happening every day. So that's, I think, one of the reasons they fail. Of course, the misinformation, maybe they have different goals we don't know about, I don't know. But this is the main reason.
What do you think is going to happen?
Where, in Iraq?
In Iraq.
If they withdraw or if not?
If they stay.
If they stay. Now we have a pilot project. If we put the principles aside, let's talk about it as pilot project. They've been there for 3 years. What happened? We don't have any evidence that the situation is getting better, but we have all the evidences that the situation is getting worse. So what's going to happen after 3 years, it won't be different from the previous 3 years. This is logical.
Let me tell you what they would say.
Yeah.
The vice president or the president would say, we have met every mark. We have made a progress, and we've had elections, and we're now negotiating the parties, not the United States, to create a government that hopefully will build stability. But each election has taken place as anticipated.
If you want to judge me as president, what I've done, you should first know what the people want. This is first. So who asked the Iraqis what they want? First. Second, if you talk about achievements, it's not what I said about achievements, it's what the people say, that I achieved something for them. So first of all, did the Iraqis have their say in that? I wouldn't listen to any other official or any other person from outside Iraq, because Iraq belongs to the Iraqis. So you have to ask the Iraqis first, not any other one. But nobody asked them. Of course, in some reviews, I received many Iraqis.
You don't doubt that most Iraqis are happy to see Saddam Hussein gone?
If you talk about minority or majority, I don't have any clue. But there's a big difference between Saddam is gone and my country is occupied.
Yes.
So there's no sense of linking the two things together. If we say Saddam has gone, why? Because he's a dictator, so what? He killed hundreds of thousands. So what did this war kill? Nearly 200,000. So I want to get off of this dictator to protect you and killing another 200. So there's no logic. So what if he's gone?
You know, that's too high a price, you think, to
exactly.
overthrow a regime.
Yeah. At least whatever price you want to pay, who's going to pay the price? The people, the Iraqis. So you have to ask them, do you want to pay this price or not? If they say we are ready to pay the price, this is their country, they have the right. But I'm not the one, as a Syrian or as American or as anyone in this world, to put myself to talk on their behalf that this is good price and this is good result. They are responsible about this.
At the beginning, it is said that there was cooperation after 9/11 between your government and the U.S. government.
Yeah.
There was intelligence shared.
Exactly.
Because your government, because of its observation of the Syrian Muslim Brotherhood, understood their relationship with Al-Qaeda, understood organizations, and provided helpful information. There was even talk of a backdoor policy in terms of the CIA sharing information. It is said that information from your government was helpful to the American government in preventing some attacks, Bahrain and other places.
That's true.
Why did that stop? What happened?
Actually, first of all, I took the initiative after the 11th of September to help the American. Why? Because we have the notion for decades that this terrorism, if it attacks, let's say in your country, in the United States, in East Asia, in Africa, someday it will attack in Syria. So the terrorism is like the internet, has no borders.
And you have the same fear of terrorism that the United States does, that
Exactly.
governments in Europe
Exactly.
do.
Because what happened in New York, it may happen in Syria. So that's why we said we have to move now, because we tried in the 80s to convince some European countries that we have to make coalition against terrorism. That time nobody cared about what we said. Because now, after 11th of September, most of the world is convinced about this idea. We said, let's move. So we started this cooperation, and we told them, I told one of those officials in the CIA, you have the information, but we have the knowledge. Because as you said, we defeated this current. It's not organization.
The Muslim Brotherhood.
Exactly, but it's not a matter of organization, what you call it, or person or group. It's a state of mind. We have to know the culture to know how to fight the state of mind. Because those terrorists, they use any cause, they assume it as a mantle, to use it to make terrorist acts. So we know what mantle they assume, and we know how to fight this and to deal with it. So they committed many mistakes in dealing.
The United States.
Yeah, in the United States regarding the security issue. But this wasn't the main reason. The main reason that you cannot have good and normal and sophisticated kind of cooperation between the intelligence, at the same time you have anonymity in the political field. So you said we either have normal relation in the whole field as a basket, or let's stop this cooperation.
So you wanted them, in exchange for information and hopeful knowledge, that they would give you what that they did not give you?
At least don't be against us. We don't want anything from them. But at least not to work against Syria. First of all, in the peace process. We talked about peace. We need peace. This administration doesn't care about the peace or peace process.
Which peace process?
Peace process between Syria and Israel that started in 1991. It's paralyzed now. We have daily bloodletting in our region, in Iraq and in Palestine, in the territory, occupied territory in Syria and Lebanon. They try to make embargo on Syria while they want us to help them in the security issues. They try to prevent any kind of support from European countries to Syria. They work against the association between Syria and the EU. They prevented even private companies to come in Syria and help in the development in our countries.
Yeah, they were doing this, in your judgment, because you didn't join in the coalition
exactly
to fight Iraq.
To fight in Iraq. That's something we wouldn't do.
Now here's what else they will raise. They will say, part of our problem with you is your support of Hezbollah. We in the United States, they say, believe Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. We believe that it provides weapons to the Palestinians and to terrorist organizations that are part of the Palestinian community. And you don't stop them. You support them, encourage them, don't stop them. You support them in Lebanon as well.
First of all, whenever you have occupation, you will have resistance. We don't make it in Syria. This is axiom, truism. I don't know if it's clear.
Yes, it is.
So it's self-evident anyway. So this is the reality. They have to understand this reality. If they like it or not, it's reality.
The reality is what?
That whenever you have occupation, you have a resistance. Hezbollah and Hamas and Jihad became existence, I think Hezbollah in the 80s, mid-80s, Hamas Jihad, I don't know when, but because of the occupation of the Palestinian territory and the Lebanese territory. So this is something Syria didn't make. But if you ask about the support, the whole region, the people support the resistance. If somebody in the United States or some people call them terrorism, it's label, but we don't recognize this label.
Let me understand. If the United States says Hamas is a terrorist organization, and you say that's not the way we perceive them. We perceive them not as a terrorist organization. So no matter how much they have done with respect to Israel, no matter how many suicide bombings and terrorist activities, you don't identify Hamas as a terrorist organization.
If you want to see the picture, you have to see the whole picture. If we talk about violence, let's talk about 4,000 Palestinians killed during the last 5 years, while from the other side, from the Israeli side, few hundred killed. So if you want to talk about the violence, and you call this violence terrorism, Israel killed more Palestinians than the Palestinians called from Israel. This is first. Second, you have to see both sides. You talk about Hamas, what they did in Israel, but they don't talk about Israel and what they did in the Palestinian territory. They commit assassination from time to time and in public, and they say they were going to kill. So it's the whole picture. Anyway, doesn't matter what label we put. And if we want to have solution, we have to deal with the facts, not with the terms.
Yes.
Whether they are terrorists or not, this is not the problem. We have to deal with the facts. And the fact, if you don't have peace, you will have more bloodletting. So we don't support violence in Syria. This is another aspect of the story. We don't support violence, but we support...
You don't support Hamas. If Hamas is engaged in suicide bombings, you don't support it. If Israel is engaged in acts of occupation that are destructive of life, you don't support it.
The word support, I mean we don't encourage.
Yes.
We support them politically because they have the right to have their own state. They have the right to have their own land back. They have the right to implement the resolution, the Security Council resolutions. Yes. That's what we support. That's what we support.
But here's an interesting thing. In Hamas, for example, just won election, and now they're trying to form a government.
Yeah.
Your country, Saudi Arabia, other Arab League members met in Beirut with a peace plan with Israel, which would support the right of Israel to exist.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. You mean the Arab Initiative?
Yeah, Arab Initiative, the King Abdullah.
Yeah, exactly.
Met.
Yeah.
Hamas does not accept that, does not accept the right of Israel to exist.
Let me explain this. For example, Syria. Let's talk about Syria. We started the peace negotiations in 1991 with Israel. We said when Israel withdraw from our land, we will recognize Israel. So when you say recognize, you say it when you achieve peace. But anyway, now when you have talk with Israel for peace, that means you recognize the reality of Israel. Yeah. But when you say verbally that we recognize it politically, that will come as a result of the peace. So the position of Hamas is like this. They used to say we don't accept, but now they don't say it. No, recently, Hamas now is very pragmatic, very realistic.
But they have not changed any of their principles.
No, they said they didn't.
Verbally.
No, they said, for what? If you do something, for what? For example, when we started our talk peace with Israel, it was for our land back. Now there's nothing to offer from Israel. If you want Hamas to do something, you have to Israel to say, I'm ready to give such a thing. They have to come and meet halfway.
But shouldn't Hamas first say, we recognize the right of Israel to exist. We're prepared to negotiate in the same way the Palestinian Authority
there's something better to recognize.
Was doing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's something like what we did. I'll go always back to our experience. Sure. I think both sides, they have to recognize the United Nations and the Security Council resolutions. This is the solution. So in these resolutions, you will have Israeli state and Palestinian state. So it's a very good idea. Both will recognize themselves, but through the Security Council resolutions.
Your country and Iran are providing economic support to Hamas, yes?
To the right, to the particular... we don't support Hamas. First of all, we support the Palestinians.
Yes.
Okay? What we support their rights, as I said. Now, we used to support Hamas when it was only an organization, because we see Hamas represents the will of the Palestinian, and this is democracy. Yes. But now, the latest elections prove that we were right.
That they had a popularity.
Exactly. Now, they are elected. If you want to call them terrorists, okay, call them terrorists, elected terrorists. Doesn't matter, but they are elected. So, I mean, they represent the Palestinian. You cannot say the whole people are terrorists.
Do you think that the Hamas, which now controls the government, they won the election, their majority, is prepared to accept the right of Israel to exist?
If it's mutual, yes. But if you talk as one way, no. So it should be mutual. What about Israel? Do they recognize the Palestinian state? We should ask them the same question.
How do you get them to...
Through the United Nations resolution. And President Bush, 2 years ago, I think, or maybe a little bit more, he talked about two states, Israeli and Palestinian.
He said it at the United Nations, the first president to so publicly say he supported the right of a Palestinian state.
That's what we want. And that's what Hamas and all the Palestinians accept. So nobody said they're going to have their own state and they're going to vanish the Israeli state. We haven't heard about this.
Is your government, you, encouraging Hamas to do what?
To hold on to the right of the Palestinian people, which are political rights. This is very clear. The refugees' right, because we have 500,000 refugees from Palestine in Syria, and you have about 5 to 6 million in other Arab countries. They're not allowed to go back to their territory, to have state, and to have normal relations like any other state.
If the Israelis say, and the Americans say, Israel will never give up Jerusalem, Israel will never allow the right of return, Israel will never completely go back to the 67 borders, is peace impossible?
It is. Because you make peace through dialogue, through taking into consideration the rights of everybody, through making compromises, and through implementing what the international laws, international community wants through the resolutions.
Do you consider Hezbollah a terrorist organization?
No, because he never attacked any civilians. He only defended his country. He's not interested in attacking inside Israel. He only defends his borders. That's what he do. So
there have been no attacks by Hezbollah.
No.
Now, is that because of the urging of Syria and you?
We need stability in general, and we need stability in Lebanon. So we always play the role to have stability, but when you have to play this role, you need cooperation. For example, I had a call from Mr. Annan last week about the southern borders in Lebanon.
Yes.
He asked me to play a role because they heard some rumors about that there must be some conflict. I said, we are ready. We need stability. But who's going to press on Israel? Because you have two sides. You cannot talk about one side. You have two sides. When you talk about borders, about two countries, you should talk about two sides.
Has the withdrawal of Syria from Lebanon meant that Iran has more influence with Hezbollah than Syria?
Our influence is with the Lebanese, not only with Hezbollah. Hezbollah represents a big part of the Lebanese, large part of them. Iran has good relation with Hezbollah and with many Lebanese. So I wouldn't say that our influence in Lebanon becoming weaker. And I wouldn't say the Iranian influence becoming bigger. I think it's still the same relation.
There's no change in how much influence either Syria or Iran has with Hezbollah?
No, we have different way of tackling the Lebanese problems now.
Why did you withdraw Syrian troops from Lebanon?
Actually, we started withdrawing in 2000, 5 years ago. Because the situation in Lebanon became more stable between 1990, the end of the war, the end of the civil war, and 2000 when we withdrew. Because Israel withdrew from the largest part of Lebanon in 2000. And because when you have army outside your country, it's expensive politically, expensive economically, expensive in all the other
aspects. It is an occupation.
No, because we entered Lebanon by request by the Lebanese.
You in no way considered the Syrian troops?
No, because if there was occupation, you should have resistance. If you didn't have resistance in Lebanon, that means we weren't occupiers. Because they wouldn't. How did they fight Israel, the Lebanese, for 15 years, or 22 years, and they didn't fight Syria? If we are occupiers, they didn't fight.
Most people suggest that the decision to withdraw the majority of Syrian troops from Lebanon came after the assassination.
Exactly, that's
of
true.
Mr. Hariri.
That's true. So, because I didn't continue, we started in 2000 withdrawing from Lebanon because we have to. This resolution before assassination of Hariri, the resolution 1559 that asked all the foreign troops to leave Lebanon, that was in the end of 2004. Before that resolution, 63% of our troops withdrew from Lebanon. But we took the decision to completely leave Lebanon after the assassination of Rafiq al-Hariri. That's true. Because part of the Lebanese thought that Syria assassinated him, killed him. So they became against Syria. They were our allies. So that's when we withdrew. So we cannot stay in Lebanon if part of the people are against Syria.
With respect, sir, perhaps the UN investigators thinks that,
Yeah.
and the world opinion thinks that.
Yeah.
That Syria, to a larger degree, had something to do
Yeah.
with the assassination.
Because some of
Mr.
the Lebanese
Hariri.
said that. Some of the Lebanese, right after the assassination, accused Syria. There's no logic, because if you ask why, Rafiq Hariri was friend to Syria, and he supported Syria in the most difficult task, let's say, for him, which is the extension of President Lahoud. He was against it, but he did it for Syria. He was against many other countries, many other political powers in Lebanon, and he did it. So
And by doing it, he was challenging Syria, because Syria was for the extension of Lahoud.
And he did it, and he did the extension. He did it. He did what we want.
Tell me what happened at the famous meeting,
At
the meeting in February,
between me and him.
right before he was
Yeah.
assassinated.
We talked about the extension. We told him we think the extension is necessary now. He said, I'm not with that decision, but at the same time, I will be with Syria. He was very good, and that's what happened. I told him, we don't want to embarrass you regarding that subject. You have the right to say no or yes, because if he said no, it was difficult for Syria to do that, or to convince the others to do it. So he can let us know a few days later, 2 or 3 days. And actually, 2 days later, he said, no, I will be with Syria, I will do it. That's what happened in that meeting.
This is not the first time you have heard this.
What?
The story is, that has gained some credibility, is that you said, threatened him.
Yeah.
Said that I will bring Lebanon down on your head. There is...
Let's put the morals aside. We condemn that. This is something, it's a crime. But let's put that aside.
The assassination was a crime, and you condemn it because it wasn't good for Syria, it wasn't good for anybody.
Exactly. Let's put it aside. If you want to do such a thing, such a bad thing, would you threaten? You don't. Why to threaten? This is first. Second, if you threaten him, you threaten somebody in order to make him do something. And if he doesn't do it, you may do what you said. But if he did it, and you threaten him, why to harm him? If he did what you want. So there's contradiction.
It is said that he came back
Yeah.
and told his son, you threatened him.
That's not true. Maybe because what we heard later, he said that somebody from the Syrian intelligence put the gun in his head. Because, as he told me later, that some officials in the West, I wouldn't mention who now, sorry, not to mention the names, but they told him that they were angry because he went with Syria. He told me that. And they used to be very close to him. Now they deal with him through protocols and things like this. So maybe he want to tell them that this is the reason. But actually nobody threatened him in Syria or me or anybody else.
And certainly you.
No, nobody, yeah, definitely. This is not my way anyway.
Do you believe that anyone in Syrian intelligence, anyone, had something to do with the assassination of Rafiq Hariri?
No, for one reason, because this kind of operation, it needs maybe big team to work for it. It's not like any other operation. It should be very sophisticated. One person cannot do it. There must be a team. There must be organization. There must be another country, intelligence. But one person cannot do it. I don't think. It's very sophisticated.
But that's just the point that the UN investigators have suggested.
Yeah.
This was a very sophisticated effort.
That's how we see
And
it.
it took people who knew something about assassinations and a conspiracy, but perhaps between Lebanese intelligence and Syrian intelligence, is the theory.
First of all, it's not part of our history to have assassinations. This is first. We were in Lebanon to prevent these kind of assassinations, and we lost more than 10,000 soldiers for that. So we're not going to use it. Second, what do you get? You should ask, if a government does such a thing, you should ask what the interest. There is no such interest in what's going on. Third, as you said, because it's sophisticated, you need apparatus. That means it's not a single person. It's more than that. So if there's somebody who's involved, and as I said, someday that he's going to be a traitor and he's going to be labeled as a traitor and he's going to be punished, there must be a traitor who work with others. But I mean, there's difference between somebody who is traitor and the apparatus or the government behind him. But so far we don't have any clue that any Syrian is involved, either in the intelligence or in the government or outside the government.
You're going to have a conversation
Yeah.
with the UN investigator in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
It's a conversation, not an interrogation.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
You'll tell him essentially what you've told me.
Exactly.
If he presents evidence to you
Yeah.
that a member of your family, whether it's your brother or your brother-in-law, was involved, and you believe it,
Yeah.
what will you do?
First of all, let me tell you, I'm sure there's no such evidence. Definitely, in 100%. I don't usually use 100%, but this time I can use it.
Because you would have asked your brother.
But second, let's assume, if we assume that anybody, we don't talk about certain names,
Sure.
anyone,
Fair enough.
Syrian or any other person, if they have this clue, I'll tell him, put it in the report. This is your job, to put this clue. He can put it. This is his job. So why to ask me? Why to present me with this clue? He has to present it in his report.
Has all of this in any way jeopardized your leadership and power in Syria?
No, for one reason, because what happened, maybe at the beginning it distracted the people, it distracted me, it distracted everybody. What's going on? What the hell is going on in Lebanon, in the region? But in a short time, everybody was talking about play on a theater.
Yeah.
And now everybody in Syria, if you ask him, he'll tell you it's a play, it's a game.
And who's playing the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go to this point. If you go back to the first and second report, they were rigged report. Everything was prepared in advance.
This is the Mellis report?
Exactly. The first witness and the second witness, they were fake. And the first one didn't confess, but we had the clues, and we presented those clues to Melis. And the second one, he came to Syria and he said, I was forced to say things like this and like that, and this is the truth. What I said was wrong, was false. So it was play. So that's why most of the people in Syria know that everything is political. There's nothing about the professional investigations. Maybe recently with the new president of this committee, we hope things is going to get better as we see it. But we have to wait and see.
As you know, there was a meeting in, I think, Brussels.
Yeah.
Mr. Benayoun from the Muslim Brotherhood.
Bayani, sorry, Bayani.
Benin, right,
yeah.
the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Your former vice president who served along, they had a meeting of 14 people in opposition
Yeah.
to, and they're saying that, quote, that in the next year,
Yeah.
this government
Yeah.
may fall.
If you go back to the history of Syria, it's a history of coup d'etat from the 40s, 50s till the 60s. So in Syria, I could not be in a high position, especially president, or to lead the country, without the approval of the people. It doesn't matter how you come. This is part of our history. So anyone wants to say such a thing, or want to be in a position, you should ask the people. They can bring somebody, and they can tell him go. This is very simple. So it doesn't matter who and where and why they meet. This is the label, this is the answer.
Do you think there'll be a democracy in Iraq?
That depends. So how do I see it now? Is the democracy more important than chaos? What is it based on? On better of economy? On safety? On what? What the benefit of democracy if you don't have the essentials, the essential things in that society? Democracy is not everything. It's a tool. It's a mean you use it to have better situation. You don't use it just to say that you are democratic.
There's no democracy in Jordan. There's no democracy in Saudi Arabia. They had an election, but the results were
the election
in Egypt.
The elections is the end result of the democracy. The democracy is how the people think. How do they accept each other? This is the democracy. In diversities, in a mixed societies like our societies, you will have different democracy than what you have in your country.
Another issue in this region,
Yeah.
we've mentioned Iran a number of times, is Iran's effort, as perceived by many people, to have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
You believe they want a nuclear weapon?
No.
You don't?
No. And they said, and I asked all those officials, they said publicly, and they said to me, we don't have interest to have nuclear weapons. I think Iran is a strong country. They are strong without this nuclear power. Second, we don't believe because we don't think the Middle East needs more troubles. Third, because we have a draft in the Security Council about dismantled all the WMD in the Middle East and preventing and evacuating the Middle East from WMD. That's how we see it as Syria.
The new president of Iran has visited you here,
Yeah.
and you have visited him in Iran.
Yeah.
What do you make of a man who says there was no Holocaust?
If you ask many people in the region, they'll tell you such a thing. Not there's no Holocaust. Let's say they exaggerated the Holocaust. We don't say. Many people, they say there's Holocaust, but they exaggerated. So there's such a perception of this event, of this title, let's say, the Holocaust in our region.
You don't believe that, though, do you? You don't believe that they exaggerated the number of deaths that Jews suffered in World War II?
It's not a matter how many were killed, 6 million or 1 million or half. The killing is killing. So it's not a matter of, I mean, how many Soviets were killed? 8 millions.
Yes.
So why didn't we talk about them? So the problem is not how many were killed. How do they use it? What do the Palestinians have to do with the Holocaust to pay the price? This is one question we ask.
Yeah,
So
but let me just stay with the idea. Though.
Yeah.
It is astounding. I mean, even people that I know in Iran
Yeah.
say we don't believe what the president is saying.
Yeah.
That there are people who believe it and that it resonates and it's a political, but
In my country, you'll hear the same. You'll have two opinions.
I want to make sure I understand what you believe. You don't believe that. I mean, you believe there was a Holocaust and you believe that millions of
No, we know
Jews were
Holocaust.
killed
No.
by German Nazi anti-Semitism.
We are Semitic as Arabs.
Yes.
I mean, if you talk about history, we are Semitic. While if you talk about Holocaust, definitely there was massacres happening against the Jewish during the Second World War. But I'm talking about the concept, about how they used it. There's a concept. How many were killed? We don't know. I don't have any clue.
Well, it
I can't
was,
say. But there was massacres. I don't know what kind. Is it gas? Is it by shooting? We don't know. I don't go into these details.
I think we know.
I don't know. You ask me personally, I don't know. I'm not expert in, I didn't spend my time just making research about this. So we know that there was massacres against Jewish and against others. So that's what I mean. I'm not saying
the
that.
scale and the purpose as part of Nazi policy was to exterminate the Jews. This was not just a massacre.
Yeah, what's going on in Palestine, we see it the same way. But we don't see it the same way. So it's a matter how to receive, because we didn't live in Europe that time as Arab. We were away that time from Europe. We don't see it the same way the Europeans see it. What's going on in Palestine, it affects us directly. You don't see it the same way we see it. We think 6 million outside their countries. Tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands killed during the last decades. So what is it? It's a concept. So we see killing as bad things. Doesn't matter if they are 100,000 or 1 million. That's what I mean.
Let me talk about the Shia crescent.
Yeah.
King Abdullah says
Yeah.
there is, from a political question, a Shia crescent.
Yeah.
Iran, Iraq. You are predominantly Sunni. Saudi Arabia is predominantly Sunni.
Yeah.
Hezbollah, predominantly Shia.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about that linkage
Yeah.
as something to fear
Yeah.
politically.
Exactly. This term, if you use it, doesn't matter what sect do you put underneath it. whenever you use this crescent and based on sects, that means you destroy the region.
Destroy the region.
The region. Whatever kind of crescent you have, or crescent or crest, crest.
Yes.
Whatever crest you have, this is very dangerous. So we said no. Let's talk about the society as intermingled societies. That's how we lived for 1,000 years or more, for thousands of years. So how to talk about crests now? And to talk about sects or ethnicities. This is dangerous in our region.
And that is exactly what is happening in Iraq today.
Exactly.
Sectarian violence.
Exactly.
Militias from one sect fighting militias from another
When you talk
sect.
about Sunni and Shia and Arab and Kurds, that means you're dismantling the country or you're disintegrating the country.
And if it disintegrates, it'll spread across borders.
We have the same
thing.
mosaic we have in the whole region, the whole Middle East. We have the same mosaic, and they all link together around across the Middle East.
But you believe that America does more damage to stability by staying than leaving. Because the argument goes, the only thing standing between all-out civil war is America's presence in Iraq today.
First of all, whenever you have war, you will have very bad side effects. Any war, no matter what the cause is, any war is something bad for any region. And the invasion of Iraq is a war. Second, they committed a lot of political mistakes, accumulation of political mistakes through the last three years. So that's why you have these results.
Finally, I want to just end with a sense of the relationship with the United States.
Yeah.
You believe the United States wishes your government good or not?
I wouldn't talk about the United States because I'm talking about the administration.
Yes.
Not the people.
The Bush administration.
Yeah.
Do you believe they
have two wings.
Two wings.
Maybe more, but at least two. Each one see it in a different way. And they see it from overseas. They don't see it from here. And this is normal when you see it from overseas, far away, through some research centers. They don't know anything about our region. You will have 2, 3, or 1,000 point of view about such a thing. But you won't see the reality at the end. So this is the situation. And this is the case with this administration. So some people, they wish bad things. Some people, they wish very bad things. Some people, they wish we have dialogue with Syria and cooperation.
But what about the Secretary of State and the President?
Okay, we've never met with the recent, we've never met with Mrs. Rice.
You would like to?
We would like to have cooperation with the administration. Who's taking a decision, who can do such a thing, we would like to.
Okay, help me understand right now.
Yeah.
What would be a kind of quid pro quo? What would be an appropriate dialogue?
Yeah. First of all, as American officials, you have to talk with me about your interest. And as Syrian officials, I have to talk to you about my interest. We can find the common interest. We can talk about it. And we have many common interests. If you talk about Iraq, if you ask them, they will tell you we need stability, and we need stability in Syria. They want to support the political process. We need it. They say they want to stay in Iraq. We say we don't want to see any foreigners in Iraq. So as principles or as titles, we have the same titles, so we can find common interests.
And if they say Hezbollah is an issue?
No, Hezbollah is part of the peace process. If they talk about peace, they say they need peace. We say we want peace. If you have peace, you won't have any problem with Hezbollah or Hamas or with any other organization in our region. So the problem, not the organizations. The problem is the peace process. If they don't like this organization, they have to find solutions. The solution is through peace.
If there is peace, and if there is a change in Iraq, and if somehow politics and security works in Iraq, you would hope that there could be a renewal of a relationship with the United States, and that therefore there would be no sanctions and no restrictions, and economic trade would flow between American companies and consumers in
No one in
Syria.
the region, no one in the regions wants to have bad relations with the United States. It's a great power. It's the most advanced country in the world. It's very beneficial for us to have good relation in politics. We depended on them a long time ago, and for a long time. to achieve the peace together. We would like to depend on them in developing our country in many different fields. So every country in this world have interest to have good relations with the United States, as we have with the other countries.
And would like to go back to the point where you were sharing intelligence and cooperating in the fight against Al-Qaeda.
Exactly, but we should take into consideration our interest. The problem with this administration that they only talk about their interest, they don't talk about the others' interest. This is not only the problem with Syria, with many other countries. But at the end, if you talk at the end result, if you talk about the end results, they didn't achieve even the interest of the United States. So we don't talk about any interest. If you ask me now, after 4 years from 11th of September, what have the world achieved any better? I don't see it. I would like somebody to tell me, yeah, there must be something, or there's something good or better. They spend their time delivering homilies, moral homilies. We want them to come and talk about realities. They have to deal with the facts, not spending the time discussing wishful thinking and titles and slogans. This is the problem.
George Bush will leave office in 2008. Will Bashar Assad be in office in 2008?
You should ask the Syrian people, don't ask me. But I would like to spend my time or my life working for my country. Still early to talk about this.
I close on this, but here is a dilemma in understanding you.
Yeah.
You are, as James Bennett said to many people, an enigma.
Yeah.
A very good New York Times reporter. They say, on the one hand, he's a dictator. On the other hand, he's not in control.
Yeah.
They say, on the one hand, he wants to reform. On the other hand, he's a captive of his father's advisors.
Yeah. Because they see reform as one word and as one mold. You have hundreds of thousands of reforms according to each country. If they understand us and our circumstances and our history and so on, they will understand what reform I'm talking about. But when they see me going in a reform, we have the same title, but I'm going in different direction because I have my own circumstances, my own facts, they will think that he's talking about reform, but he's going in another way. No, it's not another way. My reform is different from your reform. And if you're democratic, you should accept my reform. Not say your reform should be, my reform should be their reform. I have my own reform. I mean my own, not me as president or as Bashar. I mean my as Syrian, as Syria. So that's why they say I'm enigmatic, or Syria is enigmatic, because they don't know the reality. We will invite them, and we invite them to come and see the reality. At that time, they will see that we are very clear, and I think we are the clearest among the countries in our region. So we're not enigmatic at all. As you see, we answer everything clearly. This is our policy.
Thank you very much for allowing us to visit you here at this place and in Damascus and in your country.
Thank you very much for coming to Syria, and I enjoyed very much this dialogue with you.
Thank you. President Bashar Assad, President of Syria, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.